At this time, I'd like to recall to order the board meeting of the Suffolk Central School District for August 20th, 2019. Before we stand for the pledge, I would like to just get a quick consensus from the board to move item 1.10 right after we do the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Cairns? Second. Yeah, we want to move that. Right.
Second.
Okay, so first, Mr. Cairns, second was Mr. Donnelly. Okay, thank you. Everybody in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Abstentions? Nays? Motion passes. Thank you. Please rise for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I could ask everybody to please remain standing for a moment of silence for Skip Lyon, who passed away recently. Thank you. Okay. 1.07, minutes of the special meeting of July 25th, 2019. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move.
Mr. Shapiro, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Donnelly. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? Thank you. Motion passes. 1.08, minutes of the regular meeting of July 30th. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Donnelly? Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shapiro? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. 1.09, minutes of the special meeting of August 2nd. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Donnelly, do I have a second? Dr. Nick Pond. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Any abstentions?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Shapiro abstains.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add a discussion item.
Second.
I'm sorry?
I said I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add a discussion item.
I second it.
Are you looking to add that at this moment, or are you looking to add that under discussion items?
I would like to add it under the discussion items. I'm making a motion now.
You're making the motion to add as what would be potentially 4.03.
Yes.
Would you care to state what the discussion item would be?
Well, we're supposed to have a discussion on that.
Well, I think we at least need to know what we're going to be discussing.
I would like to add as a discussion item the administrative hiring committee. The administrative hiring committee to the discussion.
Okay, so let's see here. So there is a motion on the floor to add a discussion,
Discussion item.
which would be 4.03, which would be regarding an administrative hiring committee. Okay. Any discussion?
I think that we should have the discussion item for the administrative hiring committee. We had 26 resumes come in for the assistant superintendent of business, and I think it's very important to have the board and administration to have the board's opinion on the candidates and what they think. I think it's very important to have somebody who's a CPA, and this district and our taxpayers and our employees and everybody else deserves to have someone who is basically a CFO for the district, and that's what this position is. And I think that I would be honored to have input on that selection.
Anybody else?
Yeah, there were emails sent to the entire board and yourself. August 9th, Ms. Reamer sent an email to you asking that this matter be put on.
I think emails between board members are confidential and should not be read in public, so I'd ask you to please.
I'm not
okay,
reading the content.
Okay,
I'm referring to the
You're
date.
referring to emails.
I'm referring to the date.
Just saying,
I'm not referring to
please
the
be
actual.
careful what we discuss in public.
Yes, but all I'm saying is the date. I'm referring to the date of August 9th at 7:28 in the evening. Ms. Reamer asked
I'm
to have
okay
it
with
happen.
you talking publicly about an email that I sent to the board.
Ms.
I'm
Reamer
okay with
sent an email asking to have this matter put on the executive agenda. On August 18th, you replied to that email and said that it would be put on the regular agenda, not the executive agenda. Ms. Reamer then got back to you again and said that you said that I've said from the beginning that this would be put on on public, not in the executive. Yet it's not on the public agenda.
Okay.
And
Since we're.
she was not the only, I'm not finished. She's not the only one.
Please, by all means.
She's not the only one that requested it. There was more than one board member that requested it, and yet it's not on the agenda. And I just want to know why it isn't on the agenda, being it's a rather important topic, and there are several things on the agenda, and it appears as though it could have been, and it was brought to your attention.
If you would like me to, if you'd like me to tell you why.
Well, I'm not finished explaining what, if you wait till I'm done, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
I'm pretty sure I know exactly what you're talking about.
On August 9th, it was requested, and that's well before the agenda was set, and I'd just like a clear answer as to why it's not on it.
Are you finished now?
Yes, I'm finished.
Okay, good, thank you. So let's be clear. The request was made to have a discussion. Well, first of all, let's back up. Last year, on September 17th, an administrative hiring committee was created on the fly without previous discussion here in Hilburn, right at this table. When we had the reorg meeting on July 2nd of this year, it was not on the reorg agenda, and I'm pretty sure that I would speak for most of the people up here when I say that it certainly hadn't crossed my mind that the committee wasn't on the agenda like other committees are.
I would agree with you on that. I didn't do it on,
Yeah,
it didn't go on me either.
I know, right, and I think that probably will be the case for all of us. So a few weeks ago, the notion of reconvening that committee was brought up. I reached out to council to understand if in fact it had not been voted on, did it still exist? And no, because the committee was not voted on at the reorg, it does not exist. It needs to be a year-over-year reappointment. So there was an ask to have it added to executive session, to which I responded, as you said, that it is not an executive discussion. because there's nothing confidential about talking about having an administrative hiring committee. That's something that should be done before the public. Ms. Weber and I met on August 9th to set the agenda because she was going to be away on vacation last week. We already have, and I said this several times in multiple emails, that we have a big agenda for tonight as it is. There were already 2 discussion items, there were already 2 information items. There's the tax rate calculation presentation, and from the get-go, I said that it would be on the agenda for 9-3. I don't think anywhere did I ever state that we would not have a discussion on it. I simply said it would be on the 9-3 agenda. So you can be upset by the fact that it's not on tonight's agenda. You can make it sound as though I'm avoiding putting it on, but I was very clear from the beginning that the agenda for tonight already had enough on it that we were going to have to sit and discuss in public, and that this would be on the 9-3 agenda, as it will be.
Matt?
That's really all I have to say. I don't really know what else you could...
Last meeting agenda was even more items on it than tonight, and the September 3rd agenda is usually jam-packed with items right before the school year begins. So tonight is the perfect opportunity to have the discussion for the administrative hiring committee. That's why I asked for it back on August
I understand.
6th or 9th.
I understand.
Way before the agenda was finalized.
Well, like I said, I mean, Lee and I met on the 9th. The agenda is finalized, and
The agenda had items added to it after the 9th.
well, it had items amended after the 9th.
Okay.
It had items modified yesterday.
Modified, if you're modifying a document because there's a 5 instead of a 6, I would say that's a bit different than adding a discussion item. But look, if you want to have your motion, let's have your motion. I don't agree with it because, like I said, I already have it slated for the 9-3 conversation. But does anybody else have anything they want to add before we vote?
Well, I also think that it's noteworthy that, we had a tremendous amount of success. You said that this was created on the fly.
Yeah.
And we had a tremendous amount of success. That's how we ended up getting Mr. Larry Motan here. That's how we ended up with Mr. John Palmer here. These guys were all interviewed by the administrative hiring committee.
With all.
So my point being is that this is a good committee to have. It's being requested by 2 board members to be on the agenda as a discussion item. And you're just deciding, on your own, saying, hey, well, this is going to be on the 3rd. And I don't think that that's right. I think the public has the right to hear what's going on and why it's not being held, other than the fact that you didn't want it.
And the public will hear the discussion when we have the discussion item on the 3rd. And as far as Mr. Matone, with all due respect, because I think you're great, I don't think the board meeting with Mr. Matone had any impact on his being hired. And if it did, then the administrative hiring committee actually did what it wasn't supposed to do at all. Because the theory behind that committee is not to involve itself in the hiring process, but simply to meet the candidates. So I don't think it's fair to sit and say that because we hired a great ASI for HR was because of the administrative hiring committee.
Well, my point being that had we not met him, it's possible that we would have wanted another one of the finalists rather than Mr. Mazzon. Because you don't have a firm basis or a frame of reference for the person that you're hiring if you never meet him before.
No, but the administrators that we have hired in the building do, and that's their job.
It's much easier to vote on somebody when you have met them and you understand who they are a little bit better. That's just my opinion.
I get it, and I understand your position, and I know your position on the hiring committee. My position has always been and still is that this position shouldn't exist. And that's something that we can discuss.
Excuse me, for the audience, basically, he's talking about a committee. It's actually a committee of the whole. In other words, the entire board would sit and meet the various candidates. However, it was with, the acting superintendent. The idea was to see who they are and whatever, but the ultimate decision was basically from the acting superintendent to make that decision. And it was just simply a voice going back and forth. It's a part of the collegial part, and it gives the board members an opportunity to see some of the people who are applying for these positions. But it was not the Board of Education to make that ultimate decision. It was the acting superintendent. I think Mr. Kern is confusing that a little bit.
Oh, I'm certainly not.
Reasons.
And I think it was very, very great on the hiring committee and the board as a whole to just give their input about what they thought about the various people that came in for interviews. And I think that, I don't know, I mean, I think that it gave a good reference point,
Right.
and everybody gave input about what they thought about those candidates, and I think that's really helpful.
Right now, and I don't mean to cut you off, but we're actually having discussion. No, we're actually having the discussion right now that we shouldn't be discussing because we haven't voted on the motion. So we need to vote on the motion, pass it or not, have the discussion later, or have the discussion on the 3rd. So
It's just good for the people in the audience to know and understand
And-
exactly what took place. A committee of the whole. Everyone here was on that committee. That was the idea behind it. It wasn't 3 people or 4 people,
Yeah.
5 to 2 or whatever. It was everyone meeting the various candidates.
And-
But the ultimate decision was the acting superintendent, okay? That's all it was. It really comes down to, you know, some people have run on the idea of let's have more communication, okay, let's have transparency. Well, here we are, okay? We want that transparency.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor to add this as a discussion item for tonight. The alternative, if this motion fails, would be that this would be a discussion item on the agenda for September 3rd, and we will have this entire conversation then in public. So in terms of adding the hiring committee discussion to the meeting tonight, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those against? Nay.
Can you take an individual
Any-
vote on that so we can hear exactly who is in favor and who is not?
You want to do roll call?
Yes. Let's see where people stand.
Okay. Mr. Cairns, yea or nay?
We have the discussion tonight. Yeah.
Mr. McKenzie,
Yay.
Mr. Donnelly,
Nay.
Mr. Shapiro,
Nay.
Ms. Reamer,
Yay.
Dr. Nickpon, myself, nay. The motion fails. This will be a discussion item on September 3rd. At this time, I would like to make a brief statement on behalf of the board. I would like to let the public and the community know, those of you that are here tonight, and I just want to say this so that everybody is clear. Teaching assignments for the 2019-2020 school year have not been finalized. And we ask that the public review all assignment listings for any modifications that might be made before the start of school. Thank you. Acting Superintendent's comments.
I'm going to defer my comments to Ms. Isolde, who will be talking to us about the tax rate calculation.
Good evening. I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I know this will be very exciting, so I appreciate all of you coming out to see me do this tonight. So, okay, so first we're going to go through basic tax rate calculations. There are many factors involved in setting a tax rate. the tax levy amount, which the board set back in May, and we voted on in May, they set back at the end of April. The assessed valuation of the property for the different towns within the district, and although we are mostly the town of Ramapo, we do have some property in Tuxedo and also in the town of Haverstraw. That's mostly state lands. The equalization rate, which kind of brings everybody's assessed value together so we could compare it the same way. Any exemptions, we have, a few years ago we added a veterans exemption, we have an exemption for clergy, firefighters, and in the end we get a true tax rate, and that's how we base the rate. The tax levy itself is the amount of taxes paid by the property owners, which we all voted on and approved overwhelmingly back in May. And the assessed value, again, is given by the different towns. So just so you can see, it's a little hard to see the color here, but for the most part, our assessed value here in the town of Ramapo has gone down. This year, it is up a little bit, 0.44%, and this, and as I'll show you later, affects the tax rate that you actually pay, not just the tax levy percentage. So the basic change in the assessed value is because they increased some values for some of the utility companies and the addition of the Woodmont properties in Sloatsburg.
Do you want questions?
Whenever you want.
Okay. You have in here that they increased the assessed values for utility companies. They're also fighting to lower the assessments.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. I spoke with the assessor about that because they've raised on several companies, including O&R, but you'll see later that we actually got some tax petitions from United Water and AT&T about this, plus that whole utility thing with changing the assessed value and having the state do it, which is definitely a big concern for us because our property values are, we have a lot of utilities in the town. And what makes me a little nervous is as they increase this, you might be getting a false sense of our tax rate going down when actually, is it really? Exactly. But there was also some decrease in a bunch of assessed values of residential properties. So that kind of offset, but it did go up several $1 million. But again, when I saw who it was, like you, it made me, I'm definitely concerned about that. So this is a calculation just to show you basic. Okay, I'm sorry, let's go back.
Sorry, everybody. The addition of Woodmont, what was this figure? What was the amount from Woodmont?
I think it was 1.4 million off the top of my head, but I'll have to double check that for you.
And the decrease in assessment of many residential
It was
properties?
a lot of small properties all over. Basically, they said there was no big, large decrease anywhere.
Can you give me the difference in the residential? Like if you know?
I'd have to get it.
Okay.
I don't have it.
Okay.
When I was looking at this, I just wanted to know the big difference is what caused the assessed value to go up.
Right.
Yeah.
And also the Sheldon, like you have the addition
The
of
Sheldon
Woodmont.
is Pilot, I
Oh,
believe.
okay, thank you.
Mhm.
That's why I didn't see it on there.
So this is the tax rate calculation, and you can see we have assessed values. So we have property values in 3 different towns, but as you can see, 97% is the town of Ramapo. And this just shows you the split. And then here is what the tax levy, okay, I'm sorry, back to that one?
Sorry.
Back to the old one?
This shows you the clergy exemptions.
Yes,
Last year was 19.5.
yes, it's $1,500 per person, per clergy.
Oh, okay, because I thought that was the number of clergy.
Oh, no, no, no.
That
That's-
number went
it's
down.
1,500.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the amount of money that they get off of their tax bill.
Right.
Okay.
So here's the tax levy, which we all voted on. And this is the difference of this is just school tax, not library. And this shows you how much each town pays. Obviously, the town of Ramapo is paying the most money. You'll see the total is $111,372, which is a little bit less than our total. And that's because we have something called omitted taxes and also pro rata taxes, which has to do with the senior exemption. But because mainly our assessed value went up, our tax rate is going to go up 0.769, which is less than the 1% tax levy. If you remember a few years ago, we had a 0 levy to levy, but we still had a tax increase of almost 0.75%, and that was chiefly due to the assessed value going down. So the assessed value, the equalizations have a lot to do with our tax rate. That's why we don't really give you that. When you're voting, you're just voting on the actual levy. And this just shows you, there's your tax rate increase versus the assessed value. It shows you that what an effect the assessed value has on this rate. So this year we're at 1% levy, but because the assessed value went up, we're actually at 0.4. I'm sorry. Tom's head to my left. 0.74. It's okay. But other years, as you see, like last year was 2% our tax levy, but because the assessed value went down, it was 2.93. And I just mentioned that zero, it was actually the tax rate increased 0.92. So you see, not only what the board does or what the taxpayer votes on has an effect, but the town, the different rates has a big effect on our taxes. And that's something we cannot control. Any tax questions?
So we did quite well keeping the tax rate down to 1%, as opposed to some board members who wanted to raise it to 2%.
Yeah, I was against taking money from Peter to pay Paul. That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Well, if you check with the New York State Controller's
Yeah, we should check
office,
too, because that's not
really,
pretty much the same.
they've sent now 2 reports that the Suffolk School District has been over-collecting, over-taxing its people for a number of years. I think there's a figure on that in terms of how much we have in our fund balances and everything, millions upon millions of dollars that just simply roll over and stay there all the time.
So I've done a lot of research, and I will talk about this because we're going to have to review the controller's report at some time. But we are not alone, and actually when Ms. Weber and I discussed this with the controller's office, and I'm sure other board members, that they told us that we are not very different than other places. But we'll get to that in another time because I think
we were overtaxing. We were collecting too much money?
No, we never said we were collecting too much money. But we'll get to it when we review the controller's report. We can do that another time.
Released to the public?
Of course.
Okay. Do you know when?
No, it has to be reviewed by us. We have to be able to respond to it, and then eventually it gets released. Any more tax questions? Okay. So then I just want to go through the fund balance and the reserves. So this year, we had revenue of about $138 million and expenditures $135, and also transfers to the capital fund, which is what we approved last year to send for projects of $1.6 million. We lowered our encumbrances, we increased our fund balance. I mean, we get a 4% fund balance, so that increases by the amount of the new budget that we just voted on. And just some small changes there. And in the end, we had about $4 million left over, which I sent everybody this, but I decided to put in the employees' benefit reserve. The employees' benefit reserve, we used to budget for incentive, retirement incentive, which could be a very large number for us. So instead of doing that, maybe 3 years ago, we decided let's set up a reserve for that. This way we could take and save money. So in the budget, if we have money, we could put it away, a percentage of what we think the retirement would be for the next year. This year, the board voted on setting up a teacher's retirement reserve. We've had an employee's retirement reserve for several years. Now there's a teacher's retirement, which of course is a much larger number for us than the employee's retirement. We could put away about 2% of the salaries from the prior year, and that's what we did this year. This way, a few years ago, there were such fluctuations that it was really hurting us as a district because we had to pay these large amounts of dollars for retirements, both employee and teachers' retirement. This guards against it for us. Yes?
I did some research on the teacher's retirement reserve, and that actually was law that was passed in April of 2019 in order for school districts to set up the teacher retirement reserve. You have down that we're gonna, and it's one of the board resolutions for tonight, that we're gonna be setting aside over $1 million for the teacher retirement reserve.
Yes.
So I did some research about it to find out what other school districts were doing. And school districts don't have as good of balance sheets that our district does, which touches on what I think Don was trying to explain. They're hoping over years to get to $1 million to put into this teacher's reserve, because nobody has that kind of funds to set aside for this teacher retirement reserve. So the couple of places that I spoke to today, they were saying that we would love to be at $1 million. And here we are in this district, the first year that they passed the law for us to have this reserve, we're gonna put $1 million into that reserve. And I think the reason why we're putting it into that reserve is because we don't wanna put it into the tertiary reserve.
No, I mean, there's plenty of other places I can put that. I can put that right in the capital reserve and put money there. And $1 million to us it's 2%. That's what the law allows.
I understand that,
Okay.
but we're collecting, basically, if you look at our revenues and our expenditures, they have come out. Your revenues, the majority of that money is coming in from tax collection, and that's what the issue is. The issue is that we are collecting too much taxes, and then we're having this bottom figure, that you're having $4 million being left over, and you can only have 4% of your expenditure balance to be in an unreserved fund balance.
Well, with 4% of the budget.
Right, 4% of your expenditure
And we do have that, and
budget.
that's why we have
And then everything else has to go somewhere else. You can't
Correct.
leave it in that unreserved fund balance.
Correct.
But that's a problem, because over the years, we have collected so many taxes that this money belongs in the taxpayers' accounts. It doesn't belong in the school district's accounts. Now, I agree that it's nice to have a great balance sheet. It's wonderful to have a great balance sheet. But the problem is that you have to have a balance that the taxpayers aren't, every dollar counts. Every single dollar counts. And there are people who are on fixed incomes in this town, and people who live in these villages and the police departments and everybody else, and our taxes are the highest from the school district. And here we are having these great things that we could put money away in this reserve for a teacher's retirement, which, great, I hope they have everything that they need. But it's people who are on these fixed incomes that we're really hurting. Every dollar counts. And that's just my spiel, so. And also I had another question. When you talk about those journal entries that you have for us to transfer later on, A915, can you just, when we get to those, explain what that is?
Okay. Okay, so after we put the $1,075,000 in the teacher's retirement, then we transferred the rest, which was $2,500,000 to the capital reserve. If you remember, a couple of years ago, we set up I think it was 3 years ago, $10 million in a capital reserve, $7 million that will come out of the budget over 10 years. This is money for projects. Truthfully, this year, with what we just approved, we would have been in a negative balance without putting some money into this. So we could continue to improve our schools, to keep our schools, up to date, do these great projects, safety projects, and security projects, and all the other things we're doing. These are some of the tax cert petitions that we received this year. The ones in green I wanted to point out specifically because this is AT&T and United Water, which are the utility companies we spoke about before, and Suffering Partners, which is the old Novartis building. And you can see our total liability this year, if that happened, would be almost $6 million, which is way higher than it's been the last few years, well over $1.5 million more than average the last few years. But $1.5 million is this utility, which could be a very large problem for us, as you pointed out before, Melissa. They're increasing some of these utility companies. Not only could they, if the state comes in, could they decrease them for what we have here, but then we might, this potential 1.4 liability, that could be 100% that we have to pay out. So it's a huge problem, And some of the ones in red, which are a little harder to see, are additional ones for this year that we did not have last year. So here's the tax reserve. As you just saw, we had, I'm sorry, that number was changing on the fly for me, so I tried to add it. We had new tax certs of about $5,009,000. We settled, and we also eliminated over $2 million this year. I received some paperwork from the town of Ramapo that they've settled some claims, and I was able to take them off the tax cert reserve. And you can see the only thing I'm adding to it is the interest that the reserve earned this year. Because of that, even though, for years we reserved at 100%, which I know we talked about before with 2 former board members, that they heard at NISBA to do that, and that's what we continue to do.
I also talked to NISBA today, and they don't have any percentage for the reserve. I'm expecting a call back tomorrow from the officers, business office, management people, to see if they have a reserve number. But
Yes.
NISBA does not have a reserve number.
Yes, you're correct, Nat. I mean, I looked it up when the controller's office was here. I made some calls myself. But 2 former board members have both came here and told us, when we've talked about this before, that they were told at a conference on more than one occasion to reserve at 100%. But I'm not arguing that point. I'm just saying that was our policy. That's what the board policy was.
I have a question though about how the reserve, like you say that we were budgeted 100% for the tax cert reserve, but then basically any money that was left over after that 4% was put into the tertiary reserve. So was it backed into to be 100%? I mean, because now I see that you're saying that it's 87%.
Well, okay, so let me just explain what I did here. We didn't we would fund that first if we had the money to do it. If we had that leftover money, we would fund that 100%. I believe last year we had like $4.5 million that we added, but we also subtracted a couple million, so it's not the whole full year, the full current year being added.
So you do the tax cert reserve first before you do the 4% of your unreserved
No,
fund balance?
the 4% is just calculated based on the budget for the year before. We're not talking about a lot of money year to year, because that balance is already there.
Right, so you have to make sure that that 4% is there.
Of course, yes. Okay.
That's what I mean, that you make sure that that 4% is there,
100%.
and then anything that's left over, you were putting into the tax cert.
I was putting into different reserves, because we were trying to fund employees' retirement. We were trying to support our benefits, which was a huge thing, because like I said, we changed that a few years ago, and the capital reserve. So when the controller's office was here, and I really don't want to get into too much detail with that, but they talked about us being funded at 100%, and they do not have a recommendation of, that's up to us. But to try to reduce that without having a real effect on the taxpayers, if I don't fund any of that almost $6 million, that brings us down to 87% in 1 year, okay? With the $1 million that we plan to use in reserves, when we reduce the tax rate to 1%, that would bring us down to 83%. So you see, it's a huge drop year to year, and I was able to write off a lot of old ones. That doesn't always happen. Some clear for zero, some claim for a lot of money. Those utilities, again, make me very nervous. It's a lot of money. So you could see by not just taking money out of that reserve, but by not funding new reserves, we are reducing that percentage, where over a year or two, we'll be down to maybe 70% or less than that.
Well, also the 22 million is still at 87%. When somebody goes in for the tax cert, they're looking for a certain amount. That amount that they usually get in court is much less than what they're actually.
So we had some, it depends, that totally depends what happened, like in Novartis. 1 year we paid out almost 100% and they dropped the second year. But we don't know that. So agreed, or this board can decide what percentage of tax petitions they want to reserve. My recommendation, which I sent out earlier, I think last week, was to just do it over several years. We'll get the percentage down by not funding future tax petitions. So this rate will drop. In 3 years, it'll be like at 70%. Well, what's happening with utilities? I don't think you want to go too far past that, because if you have to pay out a couple $1 million every year, and I understand it's not an actual payment, but if you want to try to save the taxpayers, that $2 million, that will be, let's say the utilities are dropped and we're losing $2 million in tax potential from them.
We can talk about that, but 70% is still too high to have.
Well, that's up to you. I'm just telling you right now, that's where we are. Okay? This shows all the different reserve balances. The capital reserve, like I said, I'm adding $2.5 million this year. You see the balance is only $2.4 million. So we were actually in a negative way before we added this balance.
I just want to tell you that the comparing these last year, the beginning balance is a little bit different than it was the ending balance for last year, just so that you know that.
And
This
what?
report.
You'll have to send it to me, I don't know. I use my numbers. Okay, so, but anyway, so the debt service, for example, we are using 900,000 of that in our budget. If you remember the whole budget discussion about the building aid versus the capital bond payments, how that went down significantly, and we're using $900,000 to make up for that shortfall. The rest of it, whatever the board decides to be used in the next coming year or the year after, however you want to use it. And then the other reserves are, you know, we really didn't do much. We did the teacher's retirement like I showed. The rest is just basically interest and the increase in the employee benefits reserve, as there was that actually reserves us at about 60% of the possible retirements for this coming year. Any questions on this?
Just that the teacher retirement reserve is brand new.
Correct. It's actually a sub-fund of the employee retirement reserve. And just a little explanation again about what this is, what these different reserves do. The capital reserve is for our 10-year plan. We gave that a few years ago, $17 million, which is probably a low figure on what we need to keep our buildings in the shape and the what we expect them to be. The tax cert, we know what they are. We thought about using this as the building aid reduced over the next few years. Unemployment reserve we use, that's an unbudgeted expense. The insurance reserve we keep out there when we have these large projects in case we have something basically that comes in uninsured. The debt service we're using, which was interest made on bonds that we borrowed years and years ago. Employees benefit reserve, we don't budget that anymore. We have to set up a reserve for that. That could be a very large amount of money. The employee retirement reserve, again, years ago when we were allowed to actually increase over that tax cap, the 2% we talk about for both teachers and employees' retirement, because when the rates went up over a certain percentage, we were allowed to actually tax for that. In the future, we won't have to because we have these two reserves set up. Any questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Teresa. Okay, action items. Oh, I'm very sorry. Public participation. This is public participation on action items only. Anybody's welcome to step to the podium. This session will last for 30 minutes. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. Please refrain from mentioning any employees while you're up there. Action items only. Okay. Seeing none, I will close this portion of the meeting and move to action items. This is action items 2.01 through 2.16. Is there anything that any board member would like to pull, short of a consent agenda?
And you know what, mine are, so is it 2.05? Yes, no.
2.05 is the BOCES classroom.
2.06, 2.07, okay, so it's just the ones that were,
So just
2.08. We're
okay,
good.
okay, hold on. With 6, 7, and 8.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
So you're pulling 2.06 through 2.13? Okay. Does anybody else have anything? No? Okay. Then we will use a consent agenda for action items 2.01 through 2.05 and 2.14 through 2.16. Okay? So is there a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Donnelly? Second?
So,
Mr. Shapiro? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. So now we will go individually. 2.06, Teachers Retirement Sub-Fund Reserve Transfer. Do I have a motion? Mr. Shapiro? Is there a second?
second.
Mr. Cairns? Discussion?
This is the new budget fund, sub-fund for putting away money that was passed in April. Also, I need to know what budget code A915,
It's a fund balance.
the regular unreserved fund balance. Okay. So before you're taking money out of this, what was the balance in the unreserved fund balance?
If we had transferred that money, would have been that $4 million. That extra.
Over, so that's
Right.
over the 4%.
Which is 5 point,
Right.
I'm sorry, 5.4 million, 5.5 million.
Okay. So this fund, like I said, is other, just so that the other board members know, other school districts, this was just voted in, and other school districts wish they could put in $1 million into this fund. So it's showing that the health of the school district is very good, but we're taking money out of the taxpayers' pockets to make the school district stronger. And there has to be a better balance of not taking people's money out of their bank accounts so that the school district can hold the money.
Any other comments or discussion? No? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those against?
Nay.
Okay, sorry. Ms. Reamer was nay. Mr. Donnelly? Mr. McKenzie, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Motion passes. .07, resolution employee benefits reserve transfer. Do I have a motion? Who was that? Mr. McKenzie, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr.
Cairns, discussion?
I just was wondering, this is $356,801.65 moving to the Employee Benefit Reserve Fund. How is this amount calculated?
It's calculated based on all, I'm sorry, I don't have a microphone. It's about calculated based on all the people that are eligible to retire. We used to budget for about 75% of that. It's also has to take into account all the compensated absences for all the 12-month employees if they left through the vacation. So that's about 140,000 of the total. It's not a lot, but the rest is about 60% of the possible retirements for this year. Like I said, we used to budget for 75%. And now we're not in there. So you can see, instead of budgeting that every year, we're actually putting away a small percentage of that from this year.
So it's not at 100% for
No,
compensated
no.
absences?
No, compensated absence, I'm sorry, that's 100%, but that's 140,000. Retirement, possible teachers' retirement incentive is at 60%.
So this is on top of the teacher's retirement as well?
No, the teacher's incentive, the retirement incentive, not the retirement fund that we're funding. This is a different.
The sub?
It's not the sub fund. This is, if tomorrow 20 teachers retired or whatever, we get a list of all the teachers that are eligible to retire. They get 2 bites out of the apple now, or 1, I think, and it's a little different now. So they could walk away with whatever amount of money that is. Let's say it's $50,000. We put away 60% of that. We used the budget for it. We moved it into this to make it easier, so we're not budgeting a huge amount of it.
Do you know how much is in that reserve fund right now? Is it in this package?
It's in the package. $1.65 million.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other comments? No? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Any abstentions? Motion passes. 2.08, unemployment reserve fund transfer. Do I have a motion? Mr. McKenzie?
Second.
Ms. Reamer? Discussion?
No, I don't need to discuss, sorry.
Okay. Does anybody want to discuss? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Any abstentions? Unanimous. 2.09, 2019-2020 tax rate. Is there a motion? Mr. McKenzie? Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cairns? Discussion?
I just had a quick question. On the original resolution, the rate was going to be 193,177,034. Now it's 193.202587. I was just wondering what happened, what changed.
I got a change from the town of Ramapo. They changed their omitted and their prorated numbers, so I got that Monday morning, made the changes and sent them over.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Any abstentions? Motion passes. 2.10, capital reserve transfer. Do I have a motion? Mr. McKenzie, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Cairns, discussion.
The 2.5 million, do we have projects for what that money's for?
We've talked about, I don't have specific projects, but we've been spending pretty close to that over the last couple of years, and hopefully we'll get some new projects. I mean, there's so much that has to be done. We try to do what's the most safety necessary, security necessary first, so we kind of prioritize, but we have plenty of projects to do much more than that.
I think when we approved the $10 million capital reserve fund 2 years ago, there was quite a list. I don't have it with me, but I could probably dig it up and share it with you. There was a whole list of proposed projects that warranted, $10 million.
It was
$7 million over 10 years.
$17 million over 10 years,
Right.
because it was $7 million in the budget, $10 million in the reserve. Truthfully, I'm sure it's higher, because as costs go up for some of these projects, the building costs, they're already on me for us.
So this could be used, I mean, there's grant money out there also for the roof of this building and whatever other repairs that need to be done on this building. But more importantly, and I know this was touched upon, but I would love to see some of this money going towards mental health for our students in the schools, and hiring those social workers and those psychiatrists and the people who we need to take care of our children. I know that capital projects are very important, but there's also funding that we can get, grants and everything else that we have not applied for. There were grants for this building from New York State that were not applied for. I sent emails about it. So I'd rather see some of this money used for the mental health and the opioid addiction problem that we face, and to be there for our children. I think that's way more important than budgeting for the buildings. I'd rather save a life, so that's my position.
I'm sorry? Oh, okay. I mean, it's really up to.
How much is it?
It doesn't have the prices.
Yeah, it was just a list of all the,
The new stuff that's to be done this year is the high school, or finished by this year, high school security additions, high school gym roof restoration, middle school grandstand restoration, middle school fire alarm replacement, which I know we're in the process.
That's what we just voted on in the last budget.
Right.
This money would be.
This is new money.
Exactly.
This is new money, this has nothing to do with that stuff. This would be new improvements that they're doing.
That's budgeted for, right?
What we voted on this last May was transferred already. That's the 1.6 million that I transferred, plus $700,000 that's in the budget. That's all taken care of, yes.
But everything on that list is paid for, that's budgeted.
That list is,
Correct.
yes. Oh, it's money set aside.
Right.
it's funded.
Yes, it's
Right.
funded.
Right.
So this money that's being transferred is for unforeseen things.
It's not unforeseen, it's just projects we haven't gotten to yet. So that would be, when we look at our May vote, they'll come in and tell us about more projects. A lot of them are safety and security related. So we'll show you those projects and the board can look at it and make decisions on what kind of projects you want to go forward.
I agree with Melissa that the main project should be kids first.
Any other discussion? None? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those against?
Nay.
Any abstentions? You were aye? Okay. Motion passes. .11, board budget transfers. Do I have a motion?
Moved.
Mr. McKenzie, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Cairns, discussion?
I just had questions on these, 4.7 million for the credits and the debits, so just quick, are they just within the same line items and you just want to make sure that they're covered, that they're not overexpended within each line?
You can't be overspending. I have to cover every negative balance.
Right.
So that's what I'm doing there, but wherever I had money left over, then I used it for expenditures that we overspent.
What I would like to see for all board members is, and other districts have this as well, they have, since we have WinCap, like the school district of Roslyn, all board members are able to.
That's a bad one.
I know, but they have, because of the problems that they had, all board members have access to WinCap as a read-only. So I can pull out information that I need, and I don't have to ask you for any kind of printouts or anything else. I can go in and look at it, and I can, shoot an email to the fellow board members, and it makes it so that every single board member can get all of the information at their fingertips. We're not going to post any journal entries or anything else. We can read everything, we can find the information that we need, and I think that it's a really good thing to have for the board members so that I can get reports, Dr. Nick Pong can get reports, anybody can get the reports that they're looking for at their fingertips without going to somebody and saying, I'd like a report that shows me all of the expenditure accounts, comparing actuals, budget to actual, and then last year's stuff. So this way I can build a report and look at it. So I think that we should have that for board members as well.
I'll speak to our accounting firm about that.
Teresa, I also noticed on this item here that there was a lot of money taken out of the special ed account.
Transfer that from.
Transferred, what not taken?
Yeah, we had, I'm trying to think, 1.4, I'm sorry, I don't
Was
have.
it-
1.490.
Okay,
yes.
so part of that was op-ed, so I think 200, so I think net it's about 1.2. So we have to do a little bit better job budgeting because, yes, we have a lot of money left over. And special ed department.
Why was there so much left over?
I think that we really, other people have done things a little bit differently. I think this, and I've spoken to the auditors about this, the state auditors, what they really need to do in special ed is go, especially BOCES, that's where the money was, they really need to have a list of all the children and make a better analysis of which of those children are actually going to BOCES and which children are actually not, and how we can save money, because we are moving kids into other classrooms, I guess. So yes, that's a big thing, because of our $4 million, 1.4 of it was left over, or 1.2 was left over for special ed. So as we go forward in budgeting next year, we're going to have to do a more detailed job, or get the departments to do a more detailed job of who exactly is behind these numbers, what's behind these numbers. Just don't give us a number, oh, it's close to last year, oh, I think it's going up 10%. We need a little more analysis of some of these numbers.
It just seemed like such a big number.
Yes, it is. But we didn't use it, truthfully. If you remember when we were looking for revenue and expenditures when we were doing budgeting, Eric and I worked on getting more BOCES expenditures so we would get higher BOCES aid, and we were able to increase our revenue. And you see that transfer, a lot of that went into BOCES money for technology. So we're actually going to get some aid based on that, the way we knew. Since we knew that we get money back on that technology, we get aid. So we actually were able to use that extra money this year to our advantage.
You're good with it, I'm good with it.
I'll go with it.
Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Any abstentions? Motion passes. 2.12, tax cert fund transfer. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Shapiro, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. McKenzie, discussion?
This really goes with 2.12 and 2.13. If Teresa would please just explain.
What is the amount? I'm sorry, I don't have it in
It's
front of me.
2.4.
Okay, so basically, we transferred $2 million out. As I said, that we had some cleared claims that we paid out, and also those that were settled at zero from the town. We got some information from the attorney's office at the town of what was cleared. And then the only thing I transferred back in was the $400,000. But I wanted to make that a little clear for you, because I wasn't changing the amount only by the $4 million, but I wanted you to see that some were actually coming out. Does that make sense?
So 400,000 of the fund balance basically is going into the
The interest
tertiary.
that fund earned,
Oh,
and left
okay.
with it.
Okay.
That was it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
But you could have used that just in the general fund for teachers and stuff like it, for, whatever we need.
Do whatever you want.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those against?
Okay.
Any abstentions? Motion passes. .13, tax cert fund transfer. Do I have a first?
Motion.
Mr. Shapiro, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. McKenzie, discussion?
It's basically the other half. Yeah.
Okay, so,
You can just
we're
vote.
good, okay. So all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those against?
Nay.
Any abstentions? Motion passes. 2.14, Rockland BOCES pupil transportation contracts. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that was it. All right, we're done. All right, thank you. Information items. 3.01, bus tracking app. Who's leading this one?
That's me,
Teresa.
again.
Okay.
You haven't had enough of me tonight, I'm gonna talk some more. So, last year, last school year, we started to look at bus apps. We have GPS on all our buses. We have cameras on all our buses now. That was thanks to some of the changes that the board made in our policy a few years ago. And it was on kind of the back burner, and then we had a student come and speak about it, and we thought, you know what, maybe this shouldn't be on the back burner. Let's start looking at it a little bit more. So Chestnut Ridge was ahead of us, and they were already looking to pilot the program. They looked at a bunch of different apps and what would work best for them. And it's just escaping me, but Here Comes the Bus. That's the name of the app. And they piloted that. They thought they were going to do that a little earlier. They didn't. They piloted over. Chestnut Ridge is not just here in Southern Central. They're all over Rockland. They're in Long Island. So they piloted it on several different school districts, and they found a few issues with it. And when they brought this issue to us, and they're working on it with this company, and hope to actually have it fixed over the next few months, and maybe we will be able to look at it late fall. But the biggest problem was that the app would not only show you like your child and the immediate area, but it would show you the whole bus route. And that didn't make us comfortable, and it didn't make Chestnut Ridge comfortable. So we are working on it, but we want to make sure that when we put this app out, it is something that is very beneficial for our children and doesn't cause other problems in the long run. So I just don't want you to think that we really appreciate that. I forget the student's name, I'm sorry, but we really appreciate that the children come to us and bring things out to us, because sometimes, you know, the children are on the front lines, they see this on the buses. And we try to make the bus experience as good and as safe for everybody. So we will be working on it, and hopefully we'll be rolling it out soon.
How about the styrofoam lights?
That's not a discussion, I
I
don't
know,
know.
just
So I
curious.
actually had, okay,
Just
that's,
student came.
do you want me to talk about that or no?
What was the name?
Here Comes the Bus.
Here Comes the Bus?
Mhm.
I remember one of the kids was Frank Corelli. I don't remember the
Al Crowley.
Alan Crowley.
So
Is it-
we're listening to you.
Is there another app out there
Well,
besides Here Comes the Bus?
Yes, but this,
24.
there's a lot of different apps, but Chestnut Ridge has done a lot of investigation into these different apps. And, you know, I gotta trust that their bus company, they have a lot of children transport, they're going to look at what's best for all of us. And I feel that they've done their due diligence with that. But they, you know, like we feel, and I would think most people feel, for someone to have a whole route doesn't make much sense. So they're working on narrowing that down with this company, and they feel like they're making progress with this.
Chestnut Ridge is very strong in Long Island, and that's where they've been doing a lot of the testing in this
Yes,
way.
they did piloting in Long Island.
And how about the styrofoam?
Well,
We just,
quick, it's really, I mean, that's
well,
really not part of this,
students also
of this
came
information.
before us and asked us to try to
Well,
get rid of the
yes,
styrofoam.
they did, and I
since
think,
it's
and I
coming
think
up
that
to
when we have something to discuss or present on it, it'll be on the agenda.
Well,
I don't
that's
think
why I asked
anybody.
Mrs. Weber about it, and she
And-
said, see, Mrs. Isolde, so
Well,
Mrs. Isolde.
and I think that was within the last couple of days, so maybe we should give some time to at least put something together to have a conversation about. I don't think asking about it on the spot is necessarily the right way to go about having this conversation.
No conversation.
So I would recommend, if you want to have it as a discussion or an information item on the 3rd, let's give some time for administration to actually prepare something.
Actually, I asked last week to put it on the agenda, but obviously, as you now knowing, okay, everything does not get on the agenda that is not clear.
And it never has.
And you're keeping it going strong.
Read your policy 2342.
Simple question, I'm just curious.
Yes, look, and it's a valid question, but I don't think it's valid to ask in the middle of a bus app conversation.
No, I
She
asked
was
last
ready
week.
to answer, Matt. She was ready to answer. Thank you, Teresa.
Do you want me to answer?
Why not?
Look,
You tell me what you want me to do.
It's
I'm
not-
gonna go to the board president, whatever he wants me to do.
it's not what we are here to discuss. It's not on the agenda. It would be inappropriate to discuss it. So again, we can put it on for the 3rd, and we can get an update before school starts.
Richard Nixon.
Does that not
Remember that?
satisfy
It's
you,
called
or
the
is everything
need to know.
me, now?
Check your history.
I'm sorry, what did Nixon say? Well, no, sorry, I didn't hear you.
It's called the need to know.
Okay, well, whatever you want to accuse me of.
not accusing, just.
3.02, E&L coach.
So I wanted to share with the board where our thinking is going with E&L services. With Ms. Soto leaving the district, that left a void in the area of E&L. In addition to her elementary special services responsibility, she did a tremendous amount K-12 with respect to E&L. For those who are not familiar with the acronym, E&L is English as a New Language, which is for our students who are ELLs, are English language learners. So in looking at how to help fill the void left by Ms. Soto, along with the administration team, both central office and the principals, we really wanted to look at what our needs were. What is it that we needed? So there's a number of compliance issues related with E&L. There's certain record keeping, certain reports that need to be completed with deadlines annually. And so we really wanted to make sure all of that compliance type stuff got done, tracking student data, seeing how kids are progressing through the continuum of English language learning, and it's helpful to have one person who does that. So that was one area of need. Another area of need was expressed by our teachers. Every June we do a professional development survey, and the teachers completed, they're asked a series of questions. What was meaningful in professional development this year? What was your response to various types of things that we did? And then we always ask, one of the last questions is always, in what areas would you like additional professional development? And this year, 33% of our teachers responded that they would look for professional development in providing strategies to English language learners. So that's a really big number. I mean, there's a list of 20 different things, and so a third of them responded that this was an area that they would like additional professional development. In addition, our E&L population continues to grow. So we're always getting new students in who are English language learners. And so then the question became, okay, so we have a need in terms of we have some compliance and data stuff we need to do. And then we say we're hearing from our teachers that they want more support in this also. And then we also looked at, well, where is our achievement? So we haven't really talked about it much, but the new ESSA is the new No Child Left Behind. And so the new ESSA looks at accountability in different ways than had been looked at previously. And so one of the subgroups that are looked at are English language learners. And our preliminary ESSA data, so this was just the very first year that ESSA data was available. It came out during the winter. Our preliminary ESSA data definitely shows that we have additional room for growth with our English language learners. So the combination of meeting the various components along with the professional development really led us to an interest in having an E&L coach. So the other piece of that is we've had a very successful coaching model the last several years in technology, in project-based learning, and in literacy. So this is a model of professional development that we've been providing for the last several years that has been extremely well received by our staff. Overwhelmingly in this same survey, they indicated that the coaching has been instrumental in helping to raise student achievement and to support them in best practices and strategies. So all these pieces sort of came together, and as we're having those conversations with the various administration, we said, wow, wouldn't it be great to have an E&L coach similar to the other coaches we have that can work with our teachers to support their best practices in providing strategies for English language learners, and also take care of some of these compliance components that we've been, that need to be done. They're just things that need to be done. And so then the question became, how do we do that? And so this year, we had a number of retirements, and then we also had a number of unanticipated resignations. Teachers who resigned for a whole variety of reasons that we were not, didn't know about, we had no way of anticipating them. And so of the 4 retirements, we absorbed 3 of those and replaced 1, meaning 4 people retired and we only replaced 1 of those 4 people. We also had 6 resignations. Of the 6 resignations, we replaced 3, we absorbed 2, and then we could use a third one, the 6th of the 6th, to reallocate to this E&L coach position, which would essentially be a teacher on special assignment. And so total, this gave us, between retirements and resignations, we had 10 total retirements and resignations. 4 of those people were replaced. I would like to reallocate one of those positions to be an E&L coach, and then 5 of them would be absorbed, which means we don't replace the person, we just move on with 1 less employee. And so that's how we fund this E&L coach in a budget neutral way. So it has no impact on the budget because the position was already there, because it was a resignation that we didn't know what was going to happen. So we have posted this internally. We have a number of applicants. We have multiple applicants for the position, which is really exciting. And we look forward to making a recommendation to the board about that position, either on the 3rd or on the 17th.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions about this, the board? No? Okay. I think that's great, especially if we're to reallocate, keep the budget neutral. All right, 4.01, Board of Education workshops. I think I'd like to kick that one off too.
Yes, okay. There's 2 things here, and they're a little bit related. So I'm going to talk a little bit about workshops and administrative reports, but really the main part of this discussion time is to hear for me and the administration, to hear from the board about what it is you want to hear this year. So I just want to distinguish a little bit between what a workshop would look like versus an administrative report. So typically we have budget workshops, and they occur before the meeting in the spring. We have whatever, 2, 3, 4 a year, and it's a time that's devoted solely to that topic. And you have the board has an opportunity to interact with whoever's giving the budget workshop and ask questions and give opinions and all of that. Nothing's decided on, nothing's voted on, but it's a time for interaction. So a workshop can be on other topics too, not just a budget workshop. And so it's sort of that devoted time. Typically, every district does it differently. Some districts have 2 meetings a month. One is business and one is a workshop, and nothing's voted on at the second meeting. Other districts do it like we do, more where a workshop would typically be before the meeting. And so I wanted to give you an opportunity, if there are certain topics that you think would be beneficial to have as a Board of Education workshop, to provide some input on what that might be. An administrative report is typically later in the agenda. It would usually fall somewhere in this 3-4 range, or 5 before the board member comments. And that's typically when we do that with the CSIPs. We've done it in the past with the athletic expenditures. PPS has often done it. And that's really just literally when an administrator, depending in the area of need, presents on what's going on in their department or whatever the topic is. So what I was hoping to hear from you folks tonight is, what topics would you be interested in hearing? So that the creation of the reports is really collaborative, and I'm providing reports that are what you want to hear.
So for workshops.
For workshops and
right,
for reports.
But let's stay with workshops for now, because that's the discussion that we're on. I believe when we spoke, when we set the agenda for this meeting, you had a couple of ideas already, or departments that had already reached out.
Yes.
So I believe one of them was PR.
Yeah, the 2 departments that kind of struck me that I thought would be really informative to the board are public relations and facilities.
Right, and just so everybody understands, these aren't presentations just for the board. I mean, these are presentations for the public.
Yes.
Just like the budget workshops. When we hold the budget workshops an hour before the standard board meeting, I mean, the public is encouraged to come and understand how the budget's being put together each year. So these workshops would be essentially the same thing. We would be encouraging the public to come as well and hear about things that are happening in our district. So if there's one for communications or PR, if there's one for facilities updates or safety, or, I mean, again, this is kind of why we put this on to discuss as a board, so that we can all, you know, brainstorm and think of things that would be.
Sorry, point of information. Last year, one of the things we did with Kids First was actually to create 2 workshops for you for the first time. One was on bus safety because of the issue down in Jersey, if you remember that tragedy, okay, to make sure that you understand what bus companies are doing to make sure that your child is safe on the way to school and on the way home from school. And the other one that we did was on school safety itself, if you remember that also. So those are 2 that, you know, have been done, and the idea of bringing workshops in was really beginning last year.
Great. Are there other ideas you're interested in
I
sharing?
have a couple ideas.
Great.
I was thinking, just as we were sitting here, I think it'd be a great idea to have like a Title IX or a sexual harassment workshop. What is acceptable, what isn't acceptable. I think we've had some recent issues that maybe be informative for the folks in the community as well as the children and the teachers. I mean, I think it's, you know, we need to start putting it out there that, you know, you should say something if you see something, sort of like a, you know, bomb on a train. And another thing I think we need to discuss and maybe put it out there is mental health. You know, I touched on some of these psychiatrists and social workers, and how I think that we need more of them in this district. And I think that, you know, creating awareness amongst the parents and letting them know the signs to look for. Kids that are in crisis. You know, you have a whole match movement up right in Hilburn. They meet up here twice a month. And have them come in and speak to the plight that they've been through and how people there have lost children to opioid epidemics. And, you know, it's stuff that really gets to your heart. So I think that these are some pretty cool topics that you guys may want to consider for these workshops.
Great suggestions.
I agree, and I think that talking about PR, Jenny and I had a long conversation one day about changing the website, and I think that that would be great to have the people from the public, especially the LGBTQ community, where a lot of these kids feel bullied and not part of the fabric of the school systems. And to have something that we have on the website where it would be a search engine for bully. Like you could put bully into the search engine and it comes up with places to call and who to get in touch with in the school district and everything else. There were things that I was looking at that I put in for opioid epidemic, and it was like it came up with like a picture of people, like, you know, hey, you know, I mean, it wasn't. These things need to be done. Also, the websites need to have stuff that includes everybody. That our district is inclusive, not exclusive, and bullying and especially with the LGBTQ community, where these kids, you know, but in middle school need to feel that they're part of the community. So I know that I was approached by somebody who wants to come in and talk to kids about bullying. I know that we're going to have the P-flag people come in October, but I'm approached all the time about, you know, people who have gone through it, who have gone through this school district and have been bullied because they you know, were homosexual, and how they made it through, and it's just to have that as part of the community and have that as open dialogue with everybody else is super important. So I think that these workshops would be great.
Thank you.
Now, as far as the administrative report topics, are we
I
doing?
think we're going there next. If we're done with workshops, we'll move on to
Thank
reading.
you.
Is there anything else that anybody would like to suggest, any ideas? I mean, you know, this is something, obviously, if something comes to you later, tomorrow, the next day, I mean, you know, we can email topics, and, you know, we'll work with administration to put them together. And, I mean, depending on how many we wind up with, it's the kind of thing where maybe we have have one a month.
Right, I'll work with the administrative team to propose a schedule. Some of these take more prep work
Right,
than others,
right,
so,
right.
you know, we'll work to put a schedule together.
Yeah, I mean, something like PR might be an easy one to get for over the next couple of meetings. Something along the lines of mental health might take longer to generate. So, but we'll obviously work with administration, everybody to put together the workshop.
And just one other thing, Ms. Valenti, she's here tonight. She had a very good mental health thing at the high school PTA, and she may be able to steer you in the right direction with regard to that.
Okay, well, Ms. Valenti, if you would like, I mean, please feel free to share any information that you have about setting up that workshop, and then, you know, we can look to do that.
I think another thing we can do is also if folks that are sitting in the audience have any ideas when they come up to the podium, maybe they can share some of their ideas with us, because they're the ones that are paying the taxes and paying for the workshop, so maybe they're...
Public's always welcome to either, you know, come up to the podium and give us ideas, or send emails to the board and give us ideas. You know, we'll take whatever the board wants to, whatever the public wants to send, we'll take into consideration.
Hopefully you'll do one in particular with regard to bullying, so that people here know exactly what is the process. If you find that your child is having a problem, where do you go? Whom do you speak to? You know, let's put something out, because that's a major problem right now in all schools. And unfortunately, it goes down to the elementary schools where it begins. And there are different ways to make sure that you can stop it, you can curtail it, and you educate your students as well as the parents with regard to what's going on.
Thank you.
Okay. We can move on then to administrative reports. This is essentially the same topic, or not same topic, but the same type of conversation. Instead of workshops that we'd be looking to have in a public forum, these would be reports that the board would like to see this year from administration. So if you have ideas, so for example, there's been a lot of talk about mental health, social workers, school psychologists, and potentially bringing back X number of employees. This would be a very good report for administration to generate. This would be something that they could put down on paper and really analyze the data in terms of what staffing do we currently have, what would be the appropriate staffing given our student body. So, you know, I think something along the lines for what we're discussing with psychologists and social workers would be a great start.
Dr. Castaldo's already taking notes.
You know, because I think that will help steer us in the right direction, instead of just arbitrarily saying we need to hire more people. It'll help us quantify really what it is, what do we need as a district. You know, what are the needs of our students? What do we currently have? What do we lack? Okay.
Other reports you'd be interested in hearing?
I would like to hear an overtime report, something that goes through and looks at the overtime that people have accrued, like over a 5-year period, something like that, that shows, you know, where the areas are that the overtime happens. Also, every single, I think it's every quarter, we get a claims report. Is that quarterly?
From the claims auditor, yeah.
From the claims auditor, and there's always 30 some odd things that happen within the claims audit, that invoices are paid before the purchase orders are processed or created, and a lot of that has to do with coming in from other places, I'm sure. But what we need to do is make sure that those things are corrected and really look at them, because every single time I get this report and there's 34, 35 some odd transactions that are, you know, shouldn't be happening, we need to make sure that those are corrected.
So would that be like a claims report analysis?
Yeah, and making sure that, I mean, because I can see the claims auditor report when I get it, you know, it comes to us directly in the mail to our homes. And when I look at it, every single time I look at it, I'm like, okay, well, it's not getting better. So somebody needs to make sure that when we get that claims audit report, it should say there are none, that everything is fixed. There should be none that are outliers, that the purchase orders were done, the invoices were paid, and not the opposite. So
I don't think it's the invoices are paid. Sometimes a lot of them, and I don't really want to get into it, but a lot of them is because they'll go get a quote and they'll bill us right away. So we don't even put a purchase order on, they're working for a quote. I'm sure you see, I believe she copies you on all the detail now, right?
Exactly.
Correct? You see a lot of them are, and you might think there's a lot now, there's a lot less than it used to be, but there's some that you can, I mean, yes, you know, we will keep trying to do.
But even if those vendors are notorious for doing that, say you call them for a quote and then they send you the invoice, then you should tell the vendor, you need to make sure that you don't do that.
I know,
Or
they
else
do,
we'll
but
go
it's
off
hard,
as
it's
some,
difficult, and you know, you
pick
can
somebody
reach
else
it.
off the list.
Thank you. Other reports?
I like the overtime one is something that I think, that I agree, and something I think we touched on previously. And I don't think the goal would be to necessarily scrutinize individuals.
But look
But I
collectively.
think
Yeah.
it's really holistically to look at,
Yeah.
you know, are there ways as a district we can scale down the amount of overtime that's being paid? Okay.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts or suggestions?
And likewise, if things come to you after today, email them and let me know.
As I said before, I'd like to have access to the wind cap. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think we will close this portion of the meeting. Board member comments? Anybody got them?
I have a few.
Mr. McKenzie?
It wasn't on the agenda tonight, but I just wanted to put it out there that we had a security and safety committee meeting. Usually there's a report for that, but it wasn't on the agenda tonight. But we did have that meeting, and I'm one of the people, myself, Mr. Donnelly, and Dr. Castaldo over there. We are all involved in it. One of the things that I wanted to touch on, just for folks that weren't able to attend or what have you, there's the new security system where everybody has to get scanned in. The person in charge of doing that brought it to our attention that they were waiting for board action, some sort of policy or something of that nature in order to move forward on scanning people in. And I indicated to them during the meeting that I don't think that we need that in order to start scanning people into the system. This system that we have had, I remember when I first came on the board last year, it was sort of joked about that, well, it would be a lofty goal to have it put in before the end of the summer, but it'll certainly be in, you know, at some point during the calendar year, and that was like 2018 or beginning of 19. And we still sit here waiting for this system to be installed. We spent a lot of money on this. That's taxpayer dollars. We're talking about the security of our kids. And I think we've had this system sitting in a closet somewhere for upwards of...
It's installed.
Right, well,
It's just not in use. There's a difference.
oh, okay, so it's in, but we don't use it,
Well,
which is probably
yeah.
even worse.
But we're going to work on that.
Right, but it sounds like what you're saying is that somebody's waiting for action on our part.
So, well, my point is if it's in, and we need to start scanning people into the system, and it was said that there was some sort of release needed so that they could start scanning people, and that the person was going to contact, did that person contact you, Mrs. Weber? Did you receive any inquiries regarding that? Okay, so we need to give a release to folks to get these people starting to get scanned into the security system so that we can actually use what's in the schools now and prevent people from coming in that can possibly potentially hurt our kids.
I want to take total responsibility for that because I actually spearheaded that project as the head of, I'm in charge of the district security. But unfortunately, because, of different people leaving, believe me, I didn't want to do it. But we had to put some things on the back burner, and unfortunately, that was one of them. But with different people coming on board now, we've actually been talking about it over the last month of how we're going to rev that project up. So I take total responsibility for that not getting out there sooner. But there was, it's only some.
I think we just need clarity then on if there's anything we actually have to act on.
No, I think we have it.
I think
We're-
we have it now.
yeah.
Because
We
we
have
have the
the-
policy, we created a
yeah.
new policy, I think it's 1240.
Right.
If there's some type of release, then somebody needs to bring that to our attention.
I said to the individual that do not wait for a board action. You don't need any policy. Start scanning people in. I don't think that anybody on this board would have a problem with folks that are voluntarily coming in to have, a scan done of whatever they need for the system. I don't think anybody would have a problem on the board with that. I think, in fact, I think Tommy told them that there already was a policy, right? Didn't you tell them that?
Yeah, because the policy.
So the policy exists. I don't know what it is that still needs to be done. Is it something?
No, again, it's just a matter of the time that was necessary to start it and I apologize. I take full responsibility for that because that was something that I was working with buildings and grounds on. But over the last couple of months, we devised a plan as we're going forward. Believe me, we want to put it in. It's an idea that we had. We went to other schools to look at things. Believe me, we want to do it. And it will happen going forward. So I'm going to, again, take responsibility for it not happening.
I didn't come up here looking to point a
That's
finger at
fine,
you. I
but
want
I'm
you to
just
know
saying
that. I
that-
just wanted
but
the
I'm
system
telling you,
that we
that's
paid for
what
to get
happened.
used. That's
So
all.
as far as though this individual, maybe you want to shoot an email to
I'll take care
administration
of it.
with that individual, so we can follow up with
I
them
know
to
who
see
that is.
if they are in fact waiting for something.
I will take care of it.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, did you have anything else, Mackenzie? I think your whole 3 minutes got screwed up, so.
Yeah, it became a discussion. I apologize for that too. The other thing that I want to say, I think it's a great thing that you're talking about with the ENL coach and neutralizing, having a neutral effect on the budget. I think that's a great idea. What I'm hoping is we can do something like that with these psychiatrists and social workers and psychologists, because that's something that we desperately need. And attempted suicide rates and suicide rates in general are going up. That's a fact. And we actually got an email from a concerned parent who had a child that unfortunately committed suicide. That I think that really hit home with me. So I think that this is something that we really need to start taking seriously and need to really start looking into and doing something about it.
Okay.
Down south, schools have begun already, and it was really interesting reading an article, seeing the pictures of basically the first day of school for young children, and one of the first things they were doing was an active shooter program to make sure that the students were under the desks and the doors and so forth. The world has changed, okay? And this is the reason why it's extremely important to move quickly on getting school psychologists and psychiatrists and so forth. In Suffolk we have a great academic program. We all know that. But now it's time to really do something in terms of a mental type of program to prepare the students for the new world that is unfortunately with us at this point. So if you save money by not hiring 4 teachers, etc. and so forth, maybe it's time to look at that and really begin quickly to put into the elementary schools people who will be there to cut off the bullying and understand the students and what they're going through at this point.
Just so that you're aware, in New York State regs, elementary students are required to have access to a guidance counselor. So starting this year, we do have a guidance counselor who will be covering the elementary schools, and he's planning on working heavily in the programs at recess and stuff to help with the bullying. But I am more than happy and can promise you for the next board meeting that I'll have the numbers and the data there to kind of prove whether we should or could consider hiring more school counselors, clinical staff, maybe social workers and psychologists. I would love to. So I'll bring you those
Great.
numbers next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Going that way.
No, I'm, whoever, I mean,
I just
doesn't have to
wanted,
go in any order.
I just wanted to say that as far as a board member, we're not allowed to comment when we get emails, and this week I got plenty of emails, text messages, phone calls, and I just want you to know that first and foremost in my life, I may be a CPA or sit on a board, I'm a mommy, and I hear what you're saying, I feel what you're feeling, and we all deserve as a community to protect our children, and they have to come first. So I just want you to know that I've heard what you had to say, and I'm here, and I feel it, and I will try my hardest always to never let you down, and to always let you know that I'm a mommy first and foremost. So I have this instinct to protect all of our kids, and they're number one in our school.
Anybody else? Donald? Bureau? Anything? No? All right. I will close this portion of the meeting. Public participation. This would be public participation for any district-related business. Please remember, each speaker will have 3 minutes. It's a total of 30 minutes for the segment. And please refrain from mentioning any employees or students. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to read, and excuse me for not looking at you, because I need my 3 minutes. My name is Lynn Del Duca, and I grew up here and graduated in 1977. I provide care for children in this district and my licensed daycare. My granddaughter is the 5th generation going through this district. We lived in Delaware for 10 years and transferred back here so we could be in this district for a quality education. My husband and I became very involved from day one through the schools, the PTAs, and the community. My husband took it a step further and served on this board for 9 years. I can continue to be involved and will fight for any child in this district. Over the last couple of years, I've been appalled by many things going on in this district. Embarrassed and questioning why did I come back to this area. All giving many people the opportunity to prove me wrong. Disappointment after disappointment. I've dealt over the years with an elementary teacher who ruined my daughter's outlook on school and permanently scarred her and my family. I never thought I would have to deal with anything like this again. 4 years ago, my granddaughter had to deal with being bullied at a school that even got physical. It ruined my granddaughter's outlook on school and permanently scarred me and my family. Last year, my granddaughter had another incident involving a male teacher at Suffolk Middle School. Again, this ruined her outlook on and severely scarred her and my family. She was given outlets to deal with it, and the appropriate chain of command was notified. It somewhat worked. No 11-year-old should have to be afraid to go to school because of a certain teacher's behavior. Being afraid that this teacher knows she told about him and he can find my address. A child that wouldn't eat, made herself sick, and refused to go to school or go out anywhere. A child who was questioning her identity, her self-worth, and her ability to no longer trust any male figure. A child who already deals with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, POTS, both autoimmune diseases, which she has a 504 on. Read up on her and how she's going through, what she's going through can threaten these health issues even more. My daughter constantly advocates for her child and children, and so do I. During the year, we attended a board meeting at Suffolk Middle School. My daughter approached the board and acting superintendent at the time afterwards and spoke about this. She was assured of things. And now, this past week, a 6th grade friend of my granddaughter's posts her schedule and she sees that man's name on it. Back to square one, traumatized. I know teachers have rights, students do too, and so do parents, caregivers in the community. We are all physically suffering once again. So I ask, can someone show me these rights? I'll meet with the union, the board, principals, lawyers, whomever. This is very, very real and very, very sad. Lives have been ruined. We are all trying to get through to my granddaughter once again that she is safe. However, would you believe that? Not me. Here we go again. Yesterday, I was told by Suffolk Middle School, following the chain of command, that it was not their decision on this teacher. Contact the superintendent. That was done, along with messages to the board. The 5th generation of my family has been ruined by this district, and so is the 3rd and 4th because of this. I will listen to anyone who will be willing to talk to me, as I would hope you listen to me and come up with some solutions.
Hello, my name is Andrew Dale. Mr. Curran, you claim to be here for all the children. I want to remind you that my child is actually part of this district as well. Some of your campaign promises were that you were going to try and curtail bullying. So, I emailed you twice this week. And since, we'll just jump into it. I sent you two emails over the last 2 weeks. The reply that I received really wouldn't even be considered to be a legitimate response. So I figured, let's just put it all out on the record then, because I tried to handle it quietly. There were 3 distinct points in this email. One was to find out the status of a teacher in the school district that worked at R.P. Connor Elementary School that was involved in an anti-Semitic, disparaging, defamatory, slanderous, vicious, and otherwise vile flyer about myself and other parties.
I would ask that you please be careful not to allude to people that may or may not have done, or you're alleging.
Okay, I have 3 minutes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I have 3 minutes, and if anybody, I didn't mention anybody's name, okay? And the other, no, listen. I appreciate your legal counsel, but since you didn't want to reply in the email, I'm throwing it out here. So if somebody has an issue, okay, with this, let them come ahead. Let them come to me. Okay? Because you're not doing a damn thing about it. So I'll continue. Thank you. If you could put another 20 seconds, 30 seconds back on the clock, I appreciate it.
Keep going.
Stop. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Your snarkiness. God. So anyway, are you done? So anyway, this vile email that apparently was sent out by one of your supporters, because it was supporting you and Dr. Nick Pond. And I provided evidence to the district. And this gentleman has also been calling my house, which I've also provided evidence to the district in reference to that. Your response was, you can't discuss it. Fine, no problem. I asked you about the contents of the flyer that was sent out by one of your supporters, or multiple supporters, and asked you if you condoned it. Once again, glossed over it, didn't even respond, not even addressed. So I guess that means that you do. I don't know what it means. I also expressed and asked about, I wanted to address the retaliation from people within the school district and the effects that it's had on my children. You told me that you would forward these concerns to the administration, but you forwarded my concerns of retaliation to the acting superintendent, who herself had been involved in retaliation against my family and interfered with my son's support by attempting to stop and limit his support. Kudos to you. Know that now that you've been made aware of those actions via email and my own words tonight, I would expect that that would be investigated as well. Hopefully a little bit better than the technology teacher. We're now all starting to see the transparency and the stability that was promised. What I'm seeing is someone who's morally bankrupt if you can't answer any of those questions. And you can look to your left, you can tell that person too. Have a good night.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kristen Crowley. This is my husband, James Crowley. I'm going to do my best to be in 3 minutes. He'll finish if I don't, if I am over. We are the parents of 2 children in the school districts, ages 11 and 14. I disclose to all in any educational setting that I'm a former school principal whose last day on the job was a result of an unprovoked violent physical attack by a 16-year-old who attended the school I was in charge of. I'm very transparent about what I used to do. First, I will ask that any board member, anybody on the Board of Education has not read the email that I sent on Monday, August 19th of this year. On behalf of myself, my husband, and my children, I ask you read said email. It has been an extremely disturbing, stressful, and very tiring few days for my family. We are heartbroken. As parents sitting before me, not school board members, not school district employees, not a former principal myself, if you were in our shoes, you would also be filled with a range of emotions. At this time, while I have many things to say about one particular topic, I want to address in my email, we are going to defer at this time in a public forum and instead address the school board on the bus app, information item 3.01, an item my daughter brought in front of this board many months ago. I implore the Board of Education to continue to push for the implementation of a bus app for this district. I find it inexcusable the comments made about this technology, and even more inexcusable is taking this long for an item to be placed on the agenda in the information section. Whether you not have personally been affected by transportation in this district or not is irrelevant. 2 soon-to-be 9th graders in this district came to you with a problem, solution, and support of no less than 946 members of the community who signed their petition to implement the use of an app that would allow the students and parents to know the location of the school buses within the district. They gave the district options, statistics, and facts. 2 students stood before this board and district and desperately looked to the adults who have the power and authority to make decisions and said, help us. And they've been met with nothing but excuses, delays, and reasons as to why it's much harder than you think. It is becoming clear and more evident as the days and weeks pass by, the district does not have the best interest of safety of our students at the core. The excuse that knowing the bus's location is a safety concern is nothing more than an excuse. Anyone can follow a school bus in this district. The excuse that people will know precisely where our children are is an excuse because they're waiting for the bus already. Anybody driving by will see where our kids are standing. The excuse that this is a funding issue is nothing more than an excuse. Rutherford County School District in Montana, a school district with 2,513 students, started saving $100,000 a year after implementing this technology in 2017. And if we're concerned about the safety of our students, this school district sends out the yellow card, not an envelope, with the student's name, address, school they're attending, time their bus route is, and time the bus route drops them off, and where to stand. That information can land in the wrong hands. There's no protection of privacy there. So for everyone in this room and everybody who's going to watch this video tonight, let me take a moment and educate you on some of the districts who have implemented bus tracking technology for the 2019-2020 school year, districts that do have the safety of students at the forefront of their decision. Richmond, Oregon schools puts the safety of their 649 students first. Oak Creek School District in Wisconsin puts the safety of their 2,077 students first. Cedar Rapids School District in Iowa puts the safety of their 15,975 students first. San Antonio Independent School District in Texas puts the safety of their 50,641 students first. Katy ISD, Houston, Texas Public Schools puts the safety of their 79,905 students first. Fairfax County Public School in Washington, D.C. puts the safety of their 467 students first. Clark County, Las Vegas Public Schools, Nevada, puts the safety of our 300,000 students first. Miami-Dade, Florida, 345,000 students first. For the sake of time, I have 24 districts on my list who have news articles published in the past 2 weeks alone regarding the use of the implementation of GPS tracking technology on their buses for the upcoming school year. Just 2 weeks of press releases across the country of school districts actively ensuring their collective 1,550,790 students are safe waiting to go to school. Suffern Central School District and the Trans Group LLC put the safety of their approximately 4,000 students in question daily. For a district that prides itself on innovation and being at the forefront of technology advancement, it's a disgrace we are not on this list. Enough excuses, delays, enough of what ifs. How long do our students have to stand outside and wonder where their bus is? When this district is going to put safety first? When is this district going to start acting in the best interest of our students before, during, and after school? When are the people who have the power to make a change going to do so in the best interest of our students? What is it going to take before someone does something? How many children have to stand up here before the board and school and say, I need help before help is given? How much rejection, disappointment, and distrust is being instilled on the path to personal excellence before the adults in this school district are not afraid to stand up and say enough? These apps are not dangerous to our students and community. Not having them is. They are the future of safety. Our children deserve it. Anything less, and you're collectively saying that our students do not deserve the same safety as millions of students in school districts named above. You are saying our children are not worthy enough of the safety afforded to other children around the country whose districts put safety first.
Just want to add real quick, the scanning, putting that on the back burner says a lot. Says a lot.
Hi, my name is Dina Valenti. I don't have a speech like everybody else came prepared for, but I'm here as a mom of 5 children in the district. This is my son. And I'm trying every day in today's society, like you said, the world is changing, right? We have to be so diligent about how we teach our kids. Don't do drugs, stay humble, stay kind, work hard, train harder, keep going. Okay, last year he witnessed his sister, who's in the school district and was in 6th grade last year, get removed from technology class because she didn't feel comfortable. I got a call that day saying, don't worry, Ms. Valenti, your daughter doesn't have to go to this teacher's class. That's great for me, but what about all of these other parents who have children coming in who do not know the situation and are stuck in a situation like this? I hold my son to be a gentleman. I am responsible for a certain code of conduct. If he doesn't behave a certain way, I would for sure get a call from the school, from the principal saying, your son's not behaving a certain way. But I'm raising him to be a good person. And if I'm holding him to that standard, why can't you hold your teachers to that standard? Why do we have to dance? We have a teacher who's dancing around this metaphorical line, who's eventually going to cross it, similar to that of the teacher in the high school who crossed it. I'm trusting my son to be in an environment with mentors, someone he aspires to be. Instead, I have to worry because that teacher's name is now on my son's schedule. So I was supposed to just forget all of this and say, okay, sorry, hon, you know, your sister got preferential treatment, didn't have to do it, but now you have to go and subject yourself to listen to this teacher degrade little girls. The truth will come out. People will step forward. I believe in that. You know, the one thing I fear, I hate public speaking. But when it comes to every child, I'm not just going to stand here and say, well, my child is safe. My child doesn't have to be subjected to this person. And I know many children in this district, good students, honor roll students, sports, educate, everything, that now want to be homeschooled. Why? Because they don't want to see this man's face. They don't want him to be their substitute. You'd say, oh, Miss Valenti, guess what? Your daughter's not going to have this teacher. But then 2 days later, he's a substitute. It doesn't solve the problem here. No child should ever feel unsafe in school. So like I said, I'm holding him to a certain code of conduct. Do your job. You know, shame on all of you for letting this person go only to bring him back. That's a true slap in the face. Suspended twice already. I'm not naming names. I'm here, like I said, as a mom. I don't have any big political agenda or anything like that. Like I said, I didn't come prepared for some speech. I didn't even know my son was going to be with me tonight. I came right from football practice, as you can clearly see. And he sat here. And I'm all about transparency as a parent, too. You see something, you say something. You're in a classroom where a teacher makes a little girl feel uncomfortable, you be that man, you speak up. Because in today's society, we need to work harder. So that's all I have to say about that, and I really hope to see everybody make some changes. These kids deserve it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Fishback-Cortazzo. I don't have anything formally prepared. I'm here as a mom. I'm saddened by so much that I've seen in the last 2 years. I have 2 daughters in the district, one in elementary, now going to middle school, and my other daughter in the middle school. When we started, the district was, and our girls were, it was a really great experience at the beginning. We watched them climb, we watched the excitement in their eyes, we watched them educated, and we watched some really great experiences. And then over the course of time, these beautiful girls who really had some wonderful experiences, who were out there and performing and doing amazing things. They performed at Radio City. They had all this confidence and courage. And we watched them slowly losing their confidence levels and things changing. And we had to stop and wonder why, as parents, heartbroken, like, what's changing and what's happening and what's going on? Well, as you guys know, and most of you are parents, you trust the people that are teaching your kids, and you think that they're giving them the values in school and instilling really good stuff, the stuff that we give at home. And then you find out it's not exactly what's happening. And slowly, you start to unravel and you find your children saying, I'm scared to say, I don't want to tell you what's going on. I don't want to be ridiculed. I don't want anybody to look at me differently. And I said, but you have to stand up for what's right. And you have to let people know, because we're all victim at times in our lives to unfairness. But if you don't say anything, what's going to happen? Well, what happens is you can be bullied, you can be put in situations that you don't know how to handle and you don't know how to react, and then you shut down. And when you start to shut down, these are the children of our future. These are the kids that we're relying on to take care of us when we're old. But if we can't trust the people that are teaching us, what have we got? We've got 2 teachers right now who were both on suspension, and now they're coming back. And I'm asking, as a parent, I'm asking for you as educators to say, I emailed the board in May, in June, in July. I CC'd you guys on stuff that was going on in one of the elementary schools. And it's like, I feel like it's like untouchable. Like, you can't say how you feel. You can't get what you need for your kids because you're judged. It's like, no matter what you say, you're up against teachers. It's kind of like a police department. You're afraid to talk. You're afraid to say things because you don't want to be scrutinized. But your kids are suffering. And my kids suffered. And I watched it, and I watched this beautiful kid go through major anxiety who was school refusal because she was being, like, bullied by grown-ups. Not just by children, by grown-ups. And it's heartbreaking. And now, the one teacher who was suspended, she's been, over time and time, complaints over years and years. I know people in this room who had their children with this teacher and complained, and every year switched out to find out what happens emotionally over time. Somebody just finally becomes undone. Where is the question of tenure? Because somebody has tenure, does that make it okay to keep teaching if you're not in a sane mind to teach? What makes you sane? What makes anybody sane? Well, our kids are at stake. And now, over time, the complaints keep happening. People are afraid to say something. I said something to Adams when I tried, but it was like it wasn't heard. And now, this woman, she's coming back again. So she can crush the spirit of the next 4th grader, 5th grader, or whoever. And the list goes on and on, and on and on. And then you talk about implementing programs and more psychiatrists and more psychologists. We'll fix the problem with the teachers, the ones who shouldn't be teaching. There are amazing teachers in this district, and then there are people who shouldn't be teaching. And when you're hearing complaints over and over by different parents, where is it going to stop? When does it end? When your kid becomes sexually abused? When your kid becomes bullied by a grown-up? What is the example being set? What? My daughter was afraid because she didn't want to stand up to a teacher. And what happened? She became the product of the focus of the problem. It wasn't her. It was the grown-up. We, as parents, as human beings, as educators, it's incumbent upon us to protect the kids and our future and their future, because they are our future. And if they're not safe and they're not well taken care of, we got nothing. Our tomorrow. There's nothing for us because these are our future. They're taking care of us. So now I ask you, we have students here who are at the middle school afraid. My other daughter's not here. She was elementary level. Why? And I ask you why. If a teacher is suspended with pay and then is asked to come back again, what is it going to take? Is it going to take the teacher to finally lay the hand on that kid? Is it going to take the teacher, after making sexual inappropriate comments, to finally cross the line? If you see mental illness, the key is to stop it before it gets to that point, before that kid's damaged beyond belief. We're already picking these kids up off the floor. We got to stop it. It's unhealthy, and it's perpetuating now to a point that these kids are suffering. And this is our future of tomorrow, and we leave it in your hands. Thank you.
Yeah, I just have something little to say. School was really fun for me in the beginning, but then when I had to switch to a different set of classes that I had, like midpoint in the year, I felt scared to go to school, and I don't think that's something that other kids should be experiencing, and it was just kind of traumatizing that I had to experience it. So I feel like we should just put an end to it before it keeps just getting worse and worse.
I'm going into 7th grade now, and last year I wasn't even in this man's class, but he used to look through the window at me, and I was terrified of him, and then I heard other people coming and speaking up about it, and I thought that it was normal, but I didn't want to say anything because I was scared that I was going to be made fun of. And I saw what my sister went through in elementary school. She had a breakdown. She wasn't able to function anymore because of a teacher. The students shouldn't feel like that. You should be able to go to school and not have to worry about what people are thinking about you, especially our teachers. Those are our role models, but they're not acting like role models. They're putting up papers whispering about us in front of our faces. I've seen it happen. My sister didn't deserve it. I didn't deserve it. Riley didn't deserve it. This just isn't fair.
I just want to say I realize everything that everybody's saying is extremely difficult. And I give a lot of credit for everybody that gets up here to speak. Please try to keep it to 3 minutes. Please.
Okay, here's the thing. Okay, first of all, you guys should be embarrassed of the way you interact with one another when you have students sitting in the audience. Okay? If you don't like each other, that's fine, but please try to not make it so obvious, number one. Number two, you guys sit up here, and you know what? I've spoken to many of you many times privately, in groups. That's fine, okay? You say, send an email, we'll reply. That's a lie. You say the safety of the children are your first priority. That's obviously a lie. You started this meeting, and again, I gave you guys the heads up that a lot of people would be here, regarding a decision that you got, according to stuff from middle school, you guys made to allow a teacher to come back. My daughter has been nothing but tortured by this man, and she is not the only one. You sit there and you say, you start the meeting, because you know that a lot of people are here to talk about this, to say that teachers are not finalized. Then why were 6th grade kids sent out their schedules that arrived on Saturday? And why was I told by Suffolk Middle School today that the schedules are finalized and will be mailed out tomorrow? So I find it very hard to believe that these schedules are going to be all redone without a specific teacher's name on it. Another thing that I was told, won't say by who, that because my daughter needs to be in the building with this man, there will be an emergency safety plan put into place if they are in the same place. If at any time, okay, you feel that there should be a safety emergency plan put into place for one of your students because of a teacher, I think it's time to wake up and realize that that teacher should not be in that building. And another thing today, my daughter, honor roll, all 4 quarters. Very smart girl, obviously brave because she just got up and spoke to you, okay? I am now being told that she cannot take art and technology as a 7th grader because the only period that is available for her would be the period that that man teaches. So now my daughter cannot take art or technology because of an employee that you decide to let back in the building who has no business being there. So you guys can sit in front of us and talk to us and say that the safety of the children is what your priority is, okay? But it's bull. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. I understand that the board does not make the decision as to who can come back, but I know someone sitting up there can make this. So please make the right one.
Mr. Kurt.
I'm sorry, Melissa was asking me a question.
Mr. Kurt, could you please reiterate for all of the people here exactly what you said at the beginning, okay? And please listen to every word, okay, that he's saying.
I mean, what I said was that as we sit here right now, teaching assignments have not been finalized. I'm not going to speak for the middle school because I don't work there. I don't know what they say to who calls. Okay, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I know what they've said to people that are calling them. But what I can tell you is, with 100% certainty, that final schedules are not completed and teaching assignments are not finalized.
Can I say something? Then why is there somebody that's sitting up there right now who told me that there will be an emergency safety plan for my child because there's no way?
The exact quote was, if the teacher returns to the building, there will be a safety plan.
Over my dead body, will there be anything that makes a child?
At Suffolk Middle School, so they're on the same page as you, because according to Suffolk Middle School, this man is interning, and they told us that we need to take it up with you. So you're saying, oh, he might not be coming back, and I was told by 3 different people at Suffolk Middle School within the last 2 days that he was coming back. And yes, I can still speak because I know I didn't take 3 minutes.
My daughter's schedule is going to be changed because her sister had this individual and her sister will be coming forward with statements. The board is aware of this.
Okay.
That is an indication that the man will be returning.
It's out. Can I just, their schedules are out. The 6th graders know who their teachers are supposed to be.
I just want to say, as a board member, the only job that a child has is to go to class, do their homework, and not feel this stress and this pressure. So as a board member, over my dead body, will I let anybody feel that way in a school? I want every child to feel like all they have to do is their homework and make sure they get to class on time and eat their breakfast. That's what the children should have to worry about.
Jeanette, you know my statement is brief. I wanted to address the statement that Mr. Kern made earlier. Am I to understand that with school 3 weeks away that this matter has not yet been resolved? If so, when will a vote be taken? And when will you inform the parents? Why the lack of transparency? Schedules were sent. Should we assume other teachers will change as well? If so, who? Is this how the district will be run going forward? Thank you.
My statement will be brief. I'm a police officer, and I deal with a lot of victims. I see it firsthand. I don't have the luxury of pointing it off until another month or until another meeting. I have to make my decision there and then on what's best for that victim. Stand and make a freaking decision. Don't pawn it off another week, another month. Make a decision. I don't get that luxury. Neither should you, especially when it comes to the safety of tons of kids.
My name is Melissa Hess-Gilardi. I have 2 children in the district. I just really have one question. How is it possible that the schedules went out if the teachers are not set? Why did that happen? Look, if this teacher is truly not coming back, why would we send out a schedule alerting and upsetting all of these parents? What is going on? Get your acts together.
Any other comments? Okay. Then I'm going to close this portion of the meeting. Closing. Superintendent comments?
I know that a number of folks who spoke tonight have reached out to me. There are some people who spoke who have not reached out to me. I encourage you to do so. I also just, on another note, these 2 weeks getting ready for school are busy weeks for many of our administrators and new teachers. Today and tomorrow, our administrators are participating in their administrative retreat. Our 2nd and 3rd year teachers have their orientation on Thursday, and our new teachers have orientation next week.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Mr. McKenzie, second. Mr. Donnelly. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those against. Meeting is adjourned.